Hi guys, we're going to keep reading the Book of Three. We're on to chapter 8, The Barrow. As Ellenway had said, the passageway was more comfortable, for they could walk side by side without crouching and scuttling like rabbits in a warren. Unlike those upper galleries, the walls were lined with huge, flat stones, and the ceiling was formed of even larger flat stones, whose weight was supported by the upright slabs set at intervals along the square corridor. The air, too, smelled slightly better, musty, as if it had lain unstirred for ages, but without the choking closeness of the tunnels. None of this comforted Tarrant greatly. Ellenway herself admitted she'd never explored the passage. Her blithe confidence did not convince him that she had the slightest notion of where she was going. Nevertheless, the girl hurried along, her sandals tapping and echoing, and the golden light of the bauble casting its rays through the shadows that hung like cobwebs. They passed a few side galleries, which Ellenway ignored. "We'll go straight for the end of this one. There's bound to be something there." Tarrant had begun wishing himself back into the chamber. "We shouldn't have come this far," he said with a frown. "We should have stayed and found some way to climb out. Now you don't even know how long it will be before the passage stops. We might go trampling for days." Something else troubled him. After all their progress, it seemed that the passageway should follow an upward direction. "The tunnel's supposed to bring us out above ground," he said, "but we haven't stopped going down. We aren't coming out at all. We're only going deeper and deeper." Ellenway paid no attention to his remarks, but soon she was obliged to. With another few paces the corridor stopped abruptly, sealed by a wall of boulders. "This is what I feared!" Tarrant cried, dismayed. "We've gone to the end of your tunnel, that you know so much about, and this is what we find. Now we can only go back, and we've lost all of our time, and we're no better off than when we started." He turned away while the girl looked curiously at the barrier. "I can't understand," said Ellenway. "Why would anyone go to the trouble of building a tunnel and have it not go any place? It must have been a terrible amount of work for whoever had to dig all up these rocks. Why do you suppose—" "I don't know. I wish you'd stop wondering about things that can't make any difference to us." "I'm going back," Tarrant cried. "I don't know how I'm going to climb out of the shelf, but I'm certain I can do it more easily than digging through a wall." "Well," said Ellenway, "it's very strange and all. I'm sure I don't know where we are." "I knew we'd end up being lost. I could have told you that." "I didn't say I was lost," the girl protested. "I only said I didn't know where I was. There's a big difference. When you're lost, you really don't know where you are. When you just don't know what happened to know where you are at the moment, that's something else. I know I'm underneath Spiral Castle, and that's quite a good start." "You're splitting hairs," Tarrant said. "Lost is lost. You're worse than Dalbin." "Who's Dalbin?" "Dalbin is my—" "Oh, never mind." His face was grim, and Tarrant began retracing his steps. "We could have looked into one of the side passageways." "We could have a look into one of the side passageways," she called. Tarrant disregarded the suggestion. Nevertheless, approaching the next branching gallery, he slowed his steps and peered briefly into the gloom. "Go ahead. Let's try this one. It seems as good as any." "Hush!" Tarrant bent his head and listened intently. From a distance came a faint whispering and rustling. "There's something." "Well, by all means, let's find out what," said Ellenway, prodding Tarrant in the back. "Go ahead, will you?" Tarrant took a few cautious steps. The passage was lower, and seemed to slope down even farther. With Ellenway beside him, he continued gingerly, setting each foot carefully, remembering the sudden sickening fall that had brought him here in the first place. The whispering became a high keening wail of torment. It was as though the voices had been spun out like threads, twisted taut and ready to snap. An icy current wove through the air, carrying along with it the hollow sighs and a swell of dull mutterings. There were other sounds too, raspings and shriekings like sword points daggered over stones. Tarrant felt his hands tremble. He hesitated a moment and gestured for Ellenway to stay behind him. "Give me the light and wait for me here." "Do you think it's ghosts?" Ellenway asked. "I don't have any beams to spit at them, and that's the only thing I know will work for a ghost. But, I don't think it's ghosts at all. I've never heard one, though I suppose they could sound like that if they wanted to. I don't see why they should bother, though. No, I think it's the wind making all these noises." "The wind? How could there be—" "Wait! You may be right. There might be an opening." Closing his ears to the horrifying sounds and preferring to think of them as draughts of air rather than spectral voices, Tarrant quickened his pace. Ellenway paid no attention to his order to wait and strode along with him. Soon they arrived at the end of the passageway. Once more fallen stones blocked their way, but this time there was a narrow, jagged gap. From it the wailing grew louder, and Tarrant felt a cold ribbon of air on his face. He thrust the light into the opening, but even the golden rays could not pass the curtain of shadows. Tarrant slid cautiously past the barrier, and Ellenway followed. They entered a low-ceilinged chamber, and as they did, the light flickered under the weight of darkness. At first Tarrant could only make out indistinct shapes, touched with feeble green glow. The voices screamed in a trembling rage. Despite the chill wind, Tarrant's forehead was clammy. He raised the light and took another step forward. The shapes grew clearer. Now he distinguished outlines of shields hanging on walls, and piles of swords and spears. His foot struck something, and he bent to look and sprang back again with a stifling cry. It was a withered corpse of a man. A warrior, fully armed, lay beside him, and another in a circle of dead guarding a high slab stone on which a shadowy figure lay at full length. Ellenway paid scant attention to the warriors, having found something more interesting to her. "I'm sure Ashton hasn't any idea all this is here," she whispered, pointing to the heaps of otterskin robes and earthen jars with overflowing jewels. Weapons glistened, and stacks of helmets and woven baskets held brooches and collar pieces and chains. "She'd have fooled us all out long ago. She loves jewelry, you know, though it doesn't become her one bit." "Surely it is the barrow of the king who built this castle," Tarrant said in a hushed voice. He stepped past the warriors and drew near a figure on the slab. The rich raiment clothed the body, and polished stones glowed at his broad belt. The clawed hands still grasped the jeweled hilt of a sword, as if ready to unsheath it. Tarrant recoiled in fear and horror. The skull seemed to grimace in defiance, daring a stranger to despoil the royal treasures. Tarrant turned, and a gust of wind caught his face. "I think there is a passage. There, in the far wall." He ran in the direction of the ghostly cries. Close to the ground, a tunnel opened, and he could smell fresh air, and his lungs drank deeply. "Hurry," he urged. Tarrant snatched a sword from a warrior's bony hand and scrambled into the tunnel. The tunnel was the narrowest that they had encountered. Flat on his belly, Tarrant squeezed and fought over loose stones. Beside him he heard Ellenway gasping and struggling. Then there was a new sound, a distant booming and throbbing. The earth shuddered as the pounding increased. Suddenly the passageway convulsed, and hidden roots of a tree sprang up, the ground splitting beneath Tarrant, heaving and crumbling. In another instant he was flung out at the bottom of a rocky slope. A great crash resounded deep within the hill. Spiral Castle, high above him, was bathed in blue fire. Suddenly a gale nearly battered Tarrant to the ground. A tree of lightning crackled in the sky. Behind him, Ellenway called for help. She was half in and half out of the narrow passageway, as Tarrant wrestled with the fallen stones, and the walls of Spire Castle shook like grey rags. The towers lurched madly, and Tarrant clawed away the clumps of earth and root. "I'm all tangled with the sword," Ellenway panted. "The scabbard is caught on something." "What sword?" he asked, through gritted teeth. He seized Ellenway's arms and pulled her free. "Oof!" she gasped. "I feel as if I've had all of my bones taken apart and put back together wrong." "The sword. You said you needed weapons, didn't you? And you took one, so I thought I might need to as well." A violent explosion that seemed to rip from the very center of the earth. In a violent explosion that seemed to rip from the very center of the earth, Spiral Castle crumbled in on itself. Mighty stones of its walls fell like twigs, their jagged ends thrusting at the sky, and then a deep silence fell. The wind was still and the air oppressive. "Thank you for saving my life," said Ellenway. "For an assistant pig keeper, I must say you're quite courageous. It's wonderful when people surprise you that way." "I wonder what happened to Ashran," she went on. "She'll really be furious," she added with a delighted laugh, "and probably blame everything on me. She's always punishing me for things I hadn't even thought of yet." "If Ashran is under those stones, she'll never punish anyone again," Tarrant said. "But I don't think we'd better stay to find out." He buckled his sword. The blade that Ellenway had taken from the barrow was too long for the girl to wear comfortably at her waist, so she slung it from her shoulder. Why, that's the sword the king was holding. Naturally, said Elenway. It should be the best one, shouldn't it? She picked up the glowing spear. We're at the far side of the castle. What used to be the castle. Your friend is down there, among those trees, assuming he's waiting for you. I'd be surprised if he did with all that's going on. They ran towards the grove. Ahead, Taryn saw the shadowy forms of a cloaked figure on a white horse. They are! Gwydion! He called. Gwydion! The moon swung low behind the clouds. The figure turned, and Taryn stopped short. And in the sudden brightness, his jaw dropped. He had never seen this man before. And that is the end of chapter 8. Next time we'll read chapter 9 with Fluter Flam. I love Fluter Flam. Okay, I will see you next time. Until then, stay happy and stay safe. I hope you guys are enjoying the story. Goodbye.